How's it going, everybody? Raising Hell here, and today I thought I'd do a video on the process behind some of the videos that I create. So the video that went up yesterday, I'm going to be going over how it was conceptualized and then executed. So to get started with, first you have to find an idea. Now this can be as easy as looking around the internet or actually just being inspired by something that happened in your own life that you thought was worth making a video about. In my case, I had people ask me in the past, what mods did I regularly use for my client in Don't Starve Together. So I thought, what better way to demonstrate this, give them an answer, than actually creating another list? Because whether or not people like to admit it, most of them like lists. I know there's like some flack that you can get over making lists on YouTube, but by and large, most people like lists. So, say what you will about it. That's what a lot of people like. So here you can sort of see the final product on my screen at the moment, and I'm going to be stepping through the various process of it. So number one was finding an idea. Once you find that idea, you have to decide whether or not to write a script. For this video, it's unscripted. For that previous video, it was scripted because I wanted to make it as concise as possible. So here you can see is the script that I wrote for the entire video. Now this takes a fair bit of time, as you might imagine. So after you write the script, then you need to record the script. And I usually use Audacity to do this. So here you can see is Audacity, and I just go ahead and record myself reading the script. Obviously, you make mistakes during the reading of it, so you're going to have to export it then and put it through some post-processing. The first step of the post-processing for me is usually to run it through iZotope RX, which allows me to do things like learn to denoise. I right-click like that, just select some silence in it, and then I'll go to denoise and then select the highest quality for dialogue, and I'll run it through the process. This removes maybe 7 decibels of the noise floor, so the audio sounds a bit cleaner. And I have to do this because after that I run it through Audition, Adobe Audition. I have an entire batch select here. It's called Game VoiceOver with Compressor 2.0. As you can see, it applies a single band compressor, dynamics processing, parametric equalizer, hard limiter, and de-esser. And then recently I've also been adding another VST3 plugin. Let's see here, from Waves that I bought. It's called De-Breath. And I really love this plugin because it allows me, it's the preset for it's called Raising Hell. I really love this plugin because it allows me to remove whenever I draw a rather loud breath, that kind of stuff. It allows me to remove that without having to go through it in post-production and cut it out myself, like when I'm editing the video itself. And this is especially useful for longer playthroughs, like when I actually do long-form videos, where I'm just basically recording myself playing a game and providing commentary over it. These are some of the little touches that I add to audio to make it sound a little bit better. After I run my audio through its post-production, I'll usually import it into an NLE, a non-linear editor for video. In my case, I use Premiere Pro, and as you can see right here in this timeline, this is not trivial, right? There was a lot of stuff going on here. There is a lot of footage that I have to import. Once you have your source audio put into your video editor, the next thing you need to do is get the actual video sources. And as you can see here, I have a few little clips. I actually only have 2 that most of these videos are cut from, but you have to cut them up. As you can see right here, it's a lot of different cuts. I'm not exactly sure how else to really demonstrate it, but like, it's not the best. Look, I'm going to admit, what I do here is not the best, but it does take time. I could add more transitions in here to make it a little bit more seamless. I could remove the sound in the center, these for every transition, and like add text instead for every transition. For example, when I say mod number 8 or something like that, instead of having like audio there, I could have text and like some bumper music. Instead, I just used one track. This is the music down here. Used one track for all of it, and then I simply said which one it was. which number in the list it was, because I'm somebody who's audio driven, and I'd prefer to have somebody say it than simply show it on the screen. But, you know, given a video of this length, you know, it's not very long, it's just a little over 5 minutes, you could easily do something that was a bit more visual, and it probably would come across a bit more strongly. Same thing goes with these icons. I was going to use the mod icons, but too many of them are just really generic, and I don't think people could understand as easily that I was actually showing a mod icon up there. But, you know, regardless of whether or not my video making techniques end up being effective, it doesn't detract from the fact that this takes a fair amount of time to edit together. And that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people really appreciate when they talk to you. Because yesterday I was actually getting the footage, some of the footage that I needed here. I had to go back and record like 3 different things because the first time I didn't get quite all the footage I needed. And, you know, I was asked if I was going to play the game. Don't Starve Together. And the truth is, this stuff just takes a lot of time to gather footage for. It's the unseen aspect to video making in a lot of cases. It's not as simple as simply turning on a game and streaming it. You got to actually have an entire structure. You got to have all these art assets. And we're not even close to being done, but I would hope that this sort of impresses on people the fact that, number one, I do put a good amount of effort into the video, whether or not at the end of the day it actually looks professional. I'm not a videographer or anything like that. So, you know, it's all self-taught kind of stuff, techniques that you pick up by watching other videos. And it takes a good amount of time to create this stuff. Just to give you a brief breakdown here of what's on this timeline. This is where you do a lot of your editing. Like, you can do cuts, you can grab and delete, you know, all that stuff. You can adjust the size of these clips. So on the top here, these are static icons. This is what you see when I just like to put up little effects. The one below that, this is the video part of the timeline. This is the audio where I'm speaking part of the timeline. This is the game audio down here, the blue stuff. And then below that, we have the actual music that I've added because the game audio is not loud enough and it's a little bit too cut up to be consistent background music. So that gives you an idea. After we do that, what you have to do is go ahead and export your project. So I usually export mine in the H.264 codec. I would like to move up to H.265 because it's more efficient, but at the moment it's just not possible with my workflow. I usually target the bitrate of 12 megabits per second. I know you can obviously go higher and it probably would result in a better quality video if you are doing something that has a lot of very fine detail to it, but for Don't Starve, it's fine. And then you have to export that. The process of exporting it can take a bit of time depending upon how long the source is. In this case, it would be like 2 minutes to do it. It also depends on the resolution of the output file and the frame rate of it. If you increase the resolution, if you increase the frame rate, all these things are going to increase the length of the time it takes to render it. And another thing that's really important is how good your CPU is on your computer. I have a 4790K Core i7 that's getting a little bit long in the tooth at this point, but it still does the job fairly well. But if you don't have a performance processor that's any good at really rendering video, it's going to take you longer. If you thought we were done, however, there's still quite a bit more to do. So I'm not going to really show the next process, but I'm just going to give you an idea of what it's like. After I finish exporting the video from Premiere, I usually double check it. I skim through it to check to make sure pretty much all of the edits have been seamlessly rendered together, and then I upload it. Once again, upload, much like rendering, can take a lot of time depending upon how long the end file is, how big it is. Videos that are like 1 hour in length can take me about 3 hours to upload. Then I have to go into Photoshop, and this is where we create the actual thumbnail for the video. Now, many times, depending upon the kind of video that it is, sometimes creating the thumbnail can be like 10% of the overall time it takes to make the video. Like, I've done videos that had much more time-intensive thumbnails behind them. This one was pretty simple because, once again, I just reuse a lot of the templates that I've created in the past. So this text up here, for example, you can see it has some effects applied to it. And if we take a look, right there's the drop shadow on the text, right there's the stroke on the text, and then right there's the bevel, the embossing effect right there. So that's stuff that I've all created in the past, and basically I can just a second here, I can just select this and create anything I want with it. It's not the best, but you get the point. And then there's usually a central image. The same thing goes for the background and whatnot. I reuse the same background a lot for the Don't Starve stuff, and the same goes for video series as well. I usually change 1 or 2 aspects to it. For gameplay throughs, I'll usually end up changing the background and then changing like the number and the title of the clip. So in Don't Starve, though, this case, usually it changed the color of the background. So for example, look, we can make it more blue. We can make it kind of yellowish, green, and you can easily get all those different colors to mix it up a little bit. And then you usually have the central image. Now, I really couldn't, I tried, this actually takes a bit of time. I thought about like what image would convey a lot of client mods, and I honestly couldn't think of anything. So I found this image. I poorly cut it out. If you look at the source here, the source of the image is awful to begin with. But I tried cutting it out and then did the standard thing where I threw a stroke kind of background behind it, because I've been a fan of that recently. I used to use glow a lot, but in the end, if the source image is not something you want to put glow on, it'll look really awful. Like this image here, it's this one with all the characters in Don't Starve. It's really, really awful, the quality. So like if we do something like an outer glow and, you know, we amp this up a bit, it's going to look like, oops, here we want to increase opacity to 100%. It's going to look really blotchy. See? I mean, if you're going for that look, okay, but I personally prefer a look that's more like this because it's just uniform. So after I create the thumbnail, then you have to upload the thumbnail, and then you have to do something like create the title, description, and text for the video. And once again, I usually just create this in a notepad file. So it's not too fancy, and I'll usually just save this for later. I save it as a meta.txt file in the same folder that I archive both the thumbnail for the video that I created as well as the video itself. I usually just stick that in a folder on my network attached storage, and that's where I store it. You know, this takes some time as well. Titles. People don't often think about what goes into creating a title. How do you create a title that's both compelling and it promises people something that they want to actually see? It's not the easiest thing to come up with. I'm not the best at doing it, but it takes time to figure out. Same thing goes into the description. A little bit easier, but you know, you got to paste it. You got to go ahead and find every single link for all 10 of those mods in my case here. That takes some time to compile. And then you have to think of tags. Now, what tags are going to be relevant to this video? Because you don't want to put on misleading tags because Google can slap you on the hand for doing that. So you try to find tags that are relevant to what's in the video and what's relevant to the more of the meta of the video. So the video is about gaming, it's about gameplay. You know, you want to add in those text tags as well. So after you've done all of this, you're finally ready. Double check that you haven't missed anything before publishing the video. And then you basically have a new video created. Now, I'm not doing this video to say that this is how everybody creates their videos or every video that I make has this much effort put into it. But I have been criticized in the past of not putting any effort into my videos. And as I think you can reasonably see here, that's simply not true. There's a lot of time that goes into the videos that I create, especially the edited stuff, the scripted stuff, the shorter form stuff, even if it doesn't look like it should have taken that much time. I'm not a videographer. I'm somebody who's self-taught. I don't know all the keyboard shortcuts. So it takes me probably longer than it would take a professional. And the end result is not always professional. But that doesn't mean that I didn't invest the time. There are a couple of things that I would hope you would walk away from this video sort of knowing. One is the process that goes into creating a lot of the videos that I make. And I think it's an underappreciated process in a world that constantly pumps out more and more video. As you can see here, it's just more complicated than me simply writing a Steam guide, for example. I could have created this as a Steam guide. I typed it all up and everything, but I created it as a visual medium, and there is a lot more work involved in doing that. So I hope that in stepping you through the process here, sort of, it gives you some ideas if you plan to do this yourself, what to expect, sort of, or to maybe just help you better appreciate the amount of effort that can go into projects like this. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.